Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Let Me Entertain You, Behind the Boom in Stadium Shows. Hope everyone's having a lovely time at the event production show. My name's Hannah from M.I.C.E Events, and I'm delighted to have an amazing panelist tonight. I'm joined with Pete Holdich, the Stages Director from Star Live, Kilimanjaro Live's Head of Marketing, Jack Walsh, and Martin Gritton, the Senior Marketing and Communications Manager at London Stadium. So, the topic today is about the increased rise of stadium shows, how those complex productions are impacting venues, promoters, and we're going to dive deep into that, maybe have a couple of questions at the end. Before we kick off, I just want to run a few little stats with you guys just to show how massive this is. So income from global stadium concerts has skyrocketed 304% since 2019. Ticket revenue for stadium shows rose from 1.2 billion in 2016 to a peak of 4.6 billion in 2023. So we all know it's skyrocketing at the moment, and yeah, we're going to dig into it and just see what you guys think. First of all, why do we think this is having a massive explosion? Jack, I'm going to come to you first from Kilimanjaro.
Thank you, Hannah. A myriad of reasons that I think have really coalesced into one big moment in 2025. Obviously, Oasis's live tour being the probably the biggest live spectacular that we've seen in some time in stadiums, alongside Coldplay, Adele, and many others. I think it's the market has shaped it somewhat in that we've now got very, very, very big acts. We've got your Taylor Swifts, and then there's a little bit of a gap between the rest. So therefore, the bigger acts have to get bigger to justify their scale. But I think it's the packaged convenience and ease, to some extent, of a stadium show that people are really starting to get attracted to. It's a bit of a one-stop shop for a music moment. The transport opportunities, the ease of entry, and the kind of the packaged opportunity to have an amazing music moment, I think, is really attractive to consumers and to music fans. So that I think that's a big part of it.
Can we actually have a clip from the Oasis? Can we play the clip? Great, thank you. I got ambushed with that one, yeah. Amazing. So, Martin, can you just talk a little bit about London Stadium and how we're seeing the switch from moving from a football pitch into a concert, and how it's looking for, I know you've got Iron Maiden and Take That happening this year. Talk a little bit about what's happening in the stadium.
Yeah, sure. We've got Metallica this summer. We had Iron Maiden last summer, but Jack will come on to that in a wee bit, I'm sure. The big thing for us is how quickly we can transition from football into concert mode, or baseball or athletics, whatever it is that was kind of calendared for that weekend. It's usually a 7-day turnaround, but the big thing for us is obviously making the space that the fans can stand on. Our bowl area is up to 40,000 people, which is one of the biggest standing areas in Europe. We saw that last summer for Sam Fender and Iron Maiden. It was just two sold-out concerts where it was, it's an incredible thing to see because of just the volume of people we can get on there. But also the moving the seats back. It's an athletic stadium as first a part of the Olympic legacy, as all of us will remember from 2012. So a lot of work was done to convert it to a football stadium. So we have a lot of seating that has to be moved back, and then obviously the armour cover for the pitch, which goes in, and obviously the complications of moving that back out at the end of the summer. But we can turn it around and have an 80,000 capacity within 7 days.
Wow, incredible. And Pete, would you just talk about, because with Star Live, you guys have obviously got the Ultra stage, you've got these epic stages that go in at the drop of a hat. with huge crews. Can you just talk about those productions and how they're catering to stadiums specifically?
Well, I think just picking up on what Martin was saying there, we need to have structures that can get into these stadiums very quickly and with the least disruption as possible, while accepting that we're in a sporting environment. So we can't be, we've got to be considerate to the environment that we're setting the stages up in. If we talk about Oasis, we've got to really bring into play some of the other factors that are limitations with stadiums, because we've got to remember they're primarily there for sports use. So when you bring a concert in, you're putting the audience on the pitch, things like that. We have to be cognizant of the exit requirements to get the people on and off and out of the stadiums in fast times, getting people in there for the shows and getting them back out again at the end of the event. I think to your earlier point about the rise in stadiums themselves, I think it's in part it's an income stream for the artists as well. The accessibility of music has become available across so many social media, so many platforms, not social media platforms, so many digital platforms. To actually have that live experience for the audiences is such a important thing, and then I think the artists thrive off that, and that's leading to a rise in those events themselves.
Jack, do you want to jump in with any comparisons to other music venues or festivals and how stadiums are increased in that boom?
Thank you, Hannah. I think although music festivals are still thriving. This is still a music festival nation and continent, and I love that. I think there's definitely a consumer shift and a behavioural shift with festivals, and stadium shows are very much picking up the baton with that. I think for Gen X and millennials, music festivals were a kind of 3-4 day piss up, essentially. Excuse my language. And you were kind of starting that off in your head. That's what you were going to do. The music was obviously a big part of it, but I think we're really seeing behaviours change in that mindset. I don't think people are wanting to. There's economic reasons for it, but I think it's more behavioural. I think it's generational. I think people, certain demographics are less keen on a 3 or 4 day experience, and what a stadium can do is it can give you that in a 3 or 4 hour window. You get your Instagram moment. You get your wow moment, you get to feel that you're part of something huge, but then you can get the last tube home. So it's, I think there's definitely, and pricing wise, in terms of value, you're looking at the similar pricing for a one-off show as you are for a weekend ticket for even a premium music festival. So it shows the level of pickup for stadiums is so high that people are willing to spend a similar amount as they are on a 3 or 4 day experience. So it's stadiums are definitely picking up the baton in that respect, I think, for sure. And there's definitely a tipping point when it comes to music festivals and how they can try and combat that, in terms of a production point of view.
Yeah, so we saw apparently Ed Sheeran's the Mathematics tour sold 8.8 million tickets, which is phenomenal. Do you think this is pushing out grassroots venues and grassroots music and how that impacts that sector? I'm
always wary of shaking your fist at the highest level of the game, and I think ultimately people experiencing music, going to watch incredible music and leaving feeling inspired is a brilliant thing for the industry. Taylor Swift coming and having a £2 billion economic imprint on the UK is a brilliant thing for the industry. There's thousands of people that got paid from that tour, the backstage crews and everyone involved. So the trickle down does happen. I think, how long have we got really? Because I think in terms of looking holistically at the market, I think the squeezed middle is the problem. And I think maybe your academy level, arena level acts, that's where you're starting to see the transitional issue from grassroots to academy, to arena, to maybe stadium. And it's that squeezed middle where we're starting to see a bit of a drop-off. Because people are happy to go and see, a band in the back of a pub, and then people want to go and see Coldplay. And actually that middle ground is how you get that crowd to attend when you haven't got a pyro show and 40 backing dancers. I think there is a genuine issue with how the market is responding in that section of it, if that makes sense.
Thanks. And I guess it has such a wider economic impact, these shows, the effect businesses, the local businesses. We spoke earlier about the impact that it has around the stadium, not just for the stadium itself. Do you want to touch upon that and how that influences other businesses?
Yeah, for sure. Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park has one of the biggest sort of cultural quarters that's emerging from, V&A East, the Storehouse, BBC, who have moved there from Maida Vale. Those studios are probably going to open later this year, if not early next. Sadler's Wells, there's all these different institutions that have come along with about 5 universities I think we've got on site. So you've got thousands of students that are moving around the park, and it's kind of changed the dynamic of the area. The economic impact coming international tourism, certainly we've seen it from MLB when we've had the baseball, but the equivalent could be said for concerts, with Metallica here on a Friday and a Sunday this July. That means that we're going to have a captive audience of people on the park that are looking for other things to do. I'm not suggesting that the Metallica fans will be going to Abba Voyage, but that's a huge economic impact for the park, for London, international tourism and musical tourism. So and also technology, and what an innovative show that's been. So yeah, the impact we've seen in London and beyond has been really impressive. And that our other events such as football and athletics, I touch on that as well.
Nice. Pete, I want to come back to you, and we spoke a little bit about the technology. I know that with the Ultra stage, that it was adapted for the sightlines. Can you just go into a little bit about the evolution of the stages and how the technology is adapting to reach more fans, get more seats in the stadium?
Yeah, of course, Hannah. The Ultra stage that was the forerunner for the Oasis shows this year was first developed in 2017. For Adele's tour. That was a 360 in the round situation. Obviously, as a solo artist, video is a huge part of that content, and we saw that play out in Oasis as well. But that's the origins of that stage system. So what we've always found is that we're trying to push the boundaries and keep up with production requirements, following the designs that the creatives come up with for these shows that are complementary to the artists themselves. With the Oasis Ultra design in itself, we've been using that system across a number of one-off shows over the years. We actually placed it in a festival up in Heaton Park in Manchester for a while, and when the promoter came and wanted to see something different, it was all about the sightlines. It was all about getting the maximum experience for the audience whilst presenting the show in a very nice, clean format. One of the big drivers at one of the stadiums we visited, which I know one of the competitors for you, Martin, Wembley, we had to be very conscious of keeping those egress points open during the show. So when we were looking at the screens that were going to be so big, it was like, as we saw in the footage then, it was, dominated the whole show, but we had to cancel even the screens over the exit points for the crowd to come in and out during, at the start and at the end of the show. So, what we're always trying to do, and going back to the starting point there, with when we developed it in 2017, it's looking for the flexibility to be able to repurpose these component parts to deliver exactly what the creatives and the designers want. And I think we hit that off absolutely perfectly with Oasis. It was all about, it had to look good and it had to sound good.
Also, I've never seen so many people having the best time of their life whilst constantly rushing to get more pints from the Oasis show. So you managed that really well. There was an excellent egress of people constantly flying back with the 4-pointers. But so that was work to treat, for sure.
Thanks, Joe.
What else are the potential opportunities for these stadium shows, for venue suppliers, promoters?
I think actually, dance music, hasn't really been nailed in this. One day dance music stadium spectaculars. We haven't really seen that in this country to the same extent yet. I think we've done some fantastic rock shows, and we're really nailing rock and pop. But you look on the continent and you look at things like Ultra in Miami and the one in Croatia, and I think there's still quite a lot of headway in the industry in terms of how electronic music is kind of brought to life in a stadium setting. So there's I think we've only just scratched the surface on what's possible, and what's and how the technology is going to develop and how the artists are going to match that to meet demand, because it's definitely not going anywhere. And I think as Martin represents, we've got other non-Wembley options that are coming through that are showing their own that have got their own idiosyncrasies and brilliant ways to showcase music. So yeah, there's a lot to come yet, I'm sure.
Did you want to add?
Yeah, I was just thinking, with these dance artists, just by the nature, it's individual artists, it's DJs and things like that. There's going to have to be a lot more content on stage that creates that spectacle. And as we saw with Oasis, and we saw with referring back to Adele, as we've seen with Ed Sheeran, video is such a crucial part of that content these days. It's not just a matter of relaying the experience to the audience who can't have the good sightlines. It's actually part of the show, and I think with the dance artists, if they start getting in those stadium environments, we're going to see a lot more use of that, and that'll be pushing the boundaries of ultra and all kind of stage systems.
To bring it back just quickly, so we've got Gorillas in Spurs Stadium in June, and that's gonna, I think, that's by far their biggest ever show. They've done the O2 before, so we're jumping 30,000 tickets in London alone. On track to sell out, which is great, but there's still tickets available if anyone's interested. And I think that's going to really push the boundaries of how what is essentially a cartoon band comes to life in a stadium. And the plans are incredible. I know they're putting a lot into it, so I think that should hopefully be a landmark moment for us and for them in how stadium shows can be slightly. How you can approach it with a slightly different product, in what Gorillas is. So yeah, I'm hopeful that'll be a game changer, maybe.
Nice. So we've seen Take That did the circus show, I think it was last year, but there was fire breathers, there was performers, and there was a 30-foot elephant that came out in the middle of the stage. What sort of complexities like that, and what pain points does that put on the venue specifically to be able to turn that around? Because we talked about the lay and play football pitches being rolled out and how that's a bit of an easier transition. When it is a spectacle show like that, does that add layers and layers of complexities over just the epic video screens that you're getting? Yeah,
from a stadium point of view, I think we've seen people that have been touring their shows for years that will come in, the production, their ability to turn things around within 7 days is incredible, and very often less than that, but what we'll see for Take That, we've got 3 nights to Take That back to back. That tour doesn't start in London, but again, that's a huge overlay. It's involving a huge part of the stadium. Again, back to more on the infrastructure side, in Stratford, we have more space to bring people in and out transport-wise, not just the public, but also the production side, and also the space within the stadium itself, because it's more of a modern stadium. I mean, it's not necessarily a lot more modern than Wembley, but we do have more space, and again, the infrastructure, the roads, the transport links. So that is a challenge, but we don't have a show. Luckily, we don't have a show in June before that. The challenge will be putting on 2 nights of Metallica within a week after that will be in the round, and that's the first time we've put on a show like that. And Take That will obviously use lots of different vehicles to be in and around the crowd. But the proof will be in the pudding if we get through this summer, and just to see how those shows go. But to have those 5 shows within the space of 3 weeks will be incredible.
And you spoke a little bit when we spoke before about the venue's infrastructure, the accessibility, the toilets, the bars, and how that has to be a really high standard. Can you let us speak a little bit about how that compares to when it's a football ground to a concert?
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, the capacity. So we can have up to 62,500 for West Ham, and that's huge for a Premier League team. That's the 3rd biggest Premier League team. And West Ham wouldn't necessarily consider themselves a top 6 club, but in terms of their attendances, they're right up there. For concerts, we can go up to 80,000. So obviously, again, talking about the in-ball amount of people we can get on the deck. But the real challenge, obviously, for stadiums of our size, which we see with Wembley and with Tottenham, is getting people in and out in timely fashion, safe. You're working with a lot of the local either governing bodies, the council, other organisations. We've got one of the biggest shopping centres in Europe on our footprint, and a lot of the fans will go through Stratford Station. So luckily we're serviced by Stratford International. We've got people coming in from the South East Kent, Essex, East Anglia, but we can also get people across London on the Elizabeth line, so we're perhaps one of the only stadiums that can make use of that, the busiest line in TfL at the moment. So there's lots of positives there. I think also the footprint at London Stadium, we've got the Stadium Island, so there's a concrete island where we can bring people over bridges and create a kind of festival atmosphere when the show's on. So keeping people on site from, a show that starts at maybe 5 o'clock till 10:30 at night. You want to give them the best possible opportunities to have as much food, drink, merchandise, and be able to use the facilities safely and easily and get home quickly. So we do provide that, I think, in our shows since I've been at the stadium in the last 6 years. Really enjoyed seeing that come to life, post-COVID certainly. So I think for stadium shows, I think we can provide really good infrastructure.
I think I might just jump in. I mentioned it at the beginning about generational changes, and actually Iron Maiden, which we mentioned briefly, we've got Kilimanjaro. We've got Iron Maiden at Nebworth this summer, which is a big 2-day festival spectacular, basically. Ozfest is the title, but it's an Iron Maiden festival, and it's going great. But we are having a lot of consumer queries and back and forth about the infrastructure of the place, and we're clearly realizing that there is a bit of an age issue with Iron Maiden's fan base. A lot of Iron Maiden's fan base are 50, 60, 70 plus, and are a little bit apprehensive about coming to a field in the middle of Hertfordshire, even though Nebworth is the home of rock and has had huge shows for years. It's a sure thing. There's still traffic issues, accommodation requirements. I think people are starting to that same crowd would have come to London Stadium last year and known that they're getting a sure thing. They've got a certain level of toilets and infrastructure and parking, and I think that makes a massive difference, especially when you're trying to charge the amount of money we are at the top level for top level entertainment. So we're really seeing a generational shift towards the sure thing that a stadium can provide, and that feels like quite a new thing, but we're definitely feeling it with that show in particular.
Are you seeing any of those same patterns with the younger generation? I know you spoke about older people maybe not wanting to travel, spend a couple of hours in a muddy field, but there's been a lot of shifts with the younger generation, especially not wanting to drink as much. Also, I think I would rather go to a stadium show nowadays than a festival. Can you talk a little bit about those patterns?
Yeah, and I'm the same, but I've definitely done my festival due diligence. There's 20 years of festival going. I think I've earned the earn out by now, and I'm definitely, I'm definitely much more privy to seeing one fantastic, spectacular show rather than, having a lineup that's lent over, say, 3 days, and where there's a lot more to navigate, and especially when you have a family and you have commitments that mean maybe festivals are less realistic. I do think the cost of living crisis is something that you hear again and again. It's definitely a thing. I'm not dismissing that, but I do think the behavioural changes around alcohol are definitely having an impact on people's approach to festivals and how they tackle culture and music on that scale. And I think stadiums, like we said, definitely provide more of a one-stop shop and a way to experience that amazing show without having to get on it for 3 days, and have a stinking hangover at the end of it. I think it's there's a huge behavioural change there. Whether it's a Gen Z thing, and actually, how deep can we get? There's now Gen Alpha people are talking about, which is the next gen, and apparently they're showing early signs of being pro booze again. So maybe there's hope. There's hope for us all, and it's just a Gen Z thing. But I don't know. But it's you definitely have to cater to the needs of the crowd, and I think stadiums are definitely catering right now for the immediate wants and needs of this music audience in a way that other products just aren't. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and just touching on that point, I think when we're working with promoters that are not just bringing one headline act, so last summer we were lucky enough on Sam Fender's ticket, you could, Olivia Dean was the support act, CMAT was the third on the bill. They're three artists that everyone wanted to see last summer, and we were really grateful and lucky to have that from, I think Communion One was the promoter that brought those artists. But also when you've got a duty to those fans when they're on site to then be able to provide, and that's when, whether it's a fan base, again, the contrast we've had from going from Foo Fighters to Burna Boy to The Weeknd, and just the drinking, culture of those different groups. It's merchandise is much more important to some of those groups because, that's having that World Tour T-shirt of Iron Maiden is just as important to them as being able to get something to eat at the gigs. So it's being able to cater for those different audiences.
Yeah, I think the stadium experience is totally different to the festival experience, and at Star Live we've got a really strong portfolio of festival clients as well, and it's a completely different setup, but it's a bit more flexible. But when these international tours are coming through, the stadium is the perfect setting for it. It's a regularised environment. You can get a great view, and it's what the audiences really want to buy into.
Yeah, exactly. And like Peter said earlier, the economies of scale that a stadium offers just mean that the bean counters are much happier. And I think there's a lot of there's a few acts now that are probably have earned themselves out of the festival market. Full stop. There's not many festivals that could afford a Taylor Swift or an Oasis or a Coldplay. Apart from Glastonbury, because they get everyone for a cut price. So there is actually the stadium model is becoming maybe the only way for those acts to actually showcase themselves, because it just wouldn't work financially in any other way, really.
I think with London in particular, and we're fortunate to be one of the key suppliers of BST, which is the London Urban Festival, which does benefit from those big high-end artists coming through, and it's a regularised environment. It's not the stadium setting that you've got Martin or Wembley or anywhere else, but it is a more regularised space with the infrastructure that's going to be complementary to those big productions that are coming through. So I suppose that does show that there is that middle ground that can be established, but it has to be a long run.
Yeah, no, completely. I guess there's a handful that can make it work, but it's but yeah, they're almost becoming the exception that proves the rule at the moment in terms of in terms of how many there are. But then that also is an opportunity for festivals in itself to look a bit more inwards. Over the last decade, we've seen a huge push towards experience-led festivals like Boomtown, who are probably the market leaders, I would say, in creating a world for their customers, where the music is secondary. The experience is the priority. So that we're incredibly creative and intuitive industry that find ways to get bums on seats and people in fields, and actually a future where the headliner of a festival isn't the be all and end all is beneficial to the industry, and the stadiums can soak up that world where festivals get more creative and cater for a different clientele. But yeah, it's I think we're definitely in the early stages of how those two sit together. We're definitely not at the end game yet.
What do you think are the cracks in that model?
I mean, how long have you got? With
5 minutes.
Yeah. I think we're still, Reading and Leeds is an example of a festival model that's still incredibly headliner reliant. I think the cracks in the model are maybe still understanding who the consumer is and what they want, and how festivals can reflect that. And I think that there's still a lot of shows that are still kind of learning how young people, how Gen Z, etc., approach these products and what they want from it. So I think there's still a hell of a lot of learning to do in that respect. And also just the model of touring itself isn't ideal for festivals. You might get lucky one year and you've got album cycle and people are on the road and you can get 3 fantastic headliners. But then the next year, you just because they're not out, you don't have that, and therefore you struggle. And then the festival, it's really hard to maintain your booking prowess year on year as a festival. Whereas stadiums can accept the biannual element of touring a little bit easier and don't have to. No one's going to say, "Oh, last year Wembley had a better lineup than this year." People don't approach it in that same mindset. So festivals have to constantly up the ante. Whereas stadiums I don't think, have that same consumer positioning that festivals do.
And what about the stresses it puts on the suppliers and the crews? Can you talk a little bit about that, Pete?
I think in the stadium setting, because the window of opportunity for the stadiums to bring in concerts can be so narrow. It's for the pressure on us is to have that level of infrastructure that we can flip it round so quickly so that the stadiums can maximise those revenue opportunities to get the tours in and out. And that's one of the things at Star Live we've really focused on, trying to make these systems as slick and as efficient as possible. So we allow that disruption and allow the stadiums and the other venues to maximise the number of shows they can get through. So there's always going to be a pressure in the UK and European market because the summertime is such a short window. It's shorter still for the stadiums, but in the festival setting it runs runs for 3 or 4 months, and everyone knows what the weather can be like in the UK, so that's a big pressure in itself as well. So.
Definitely. So we've got a couple of minutes left, and we're going to open it up to a few questions. If anyone has a question they want to ask the panel. Feeling brave, anyone? Okay. Okay. Guys, going forward this year, we've got a really exciting summer ahead. All three companies have got massive things happening. Can you just give us a little snippet of something that you're excited about, a big show that's coming up that you personally can't wait to happen?
We've got, as I said, we've got a really strong festival portfolio this summer. Park Life is going to see some quite major changes. We've been one of the key suppliers there for a number of years now, so we're quite excited to roll out more variations of the Ultra system, which was, as I mentioned earlier on, was a focal point for the promoters when they were looking to develop the Oasis show. So we're really excited about that. And some of the other festival shows, like tramlines and truck and things like that as well, we've got some really great infrastructure going in there. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Nice. Thanks.
I kind of ruined it by saying gorillas earlier, so I would say
Do you want to give us a bit more information about the gorillas?
Yeah,
tour?
I mean, we've got a UK tour. It's arenas, and that starts in a couple of weeks. So actually, there's a trial show in Bradford happening at a place called Bradford Live, about 3,000 cap venue there. And then the show starts proper all around the country. But then Spurs Stadium it takes place in June, a few months after the rest of the tour. And yeah, it'll be Gorilla's biggest moment as a band. So we're really excited about that, and I think it'll be a moment. And also Bad Bunny's doing 2 nights. They're not our shows, sadly, but Bad Bunny doing 2 nights at Spurs. I think this, following Beyonce's shows, I think this should be a real, a real flag in the ground moment for Spurs and that stadium as a world leading stadium. So yeah, I'm really excited to finally be part of one and help bring that to life.
Sorry, Anna, the excitement of sitting on this sofa with these very knowledgeable people and yourself, I did forget that we are actually returning to download this year. So we've got a Titan stage, which uses the Ultra technology, going to be the main arena. So that's something we're really, really excited about. And Mark's returned to a festival that we were first involved with nearly 15, 16 years ago. So yeah, that's a really special one for us.
Epic. Go for it.
Yeah, and just for us, again, that Metallica show over the weekend, it's 2 shows. It's no repeat weekends, so you had to buy a ticket to both shows, which is an incredible concept to get across, but there wasn't much barrier from their fan base. So, yeah, really excited to see how that pans out.
Nice. And that's sold out as well, isn't it?
Yeah, sold out. But, I mean, there might be some individual night tickets available near the time, but, yeah, on the whole, it's sold.
Final question, because we've just got a few more minutes, unless anyone has plucked up the courage. No. Do you think that this boom is a bubble that is going to break, or do you think it's sustainable?
I think it's sustainable. I think when you look at, Coldplay, for example, that have been touring for nearly 3 years now and developing their shows, Ed Sheeran, another great success. Oasis, I think, the success of, what they experienced last year, it shows that there's plenty of appetite out there for these, stunning shows that can go on a global tour. So I think it's here to stay. It's going to become part of the event calendar for stadiums on a global level.
Yeah, I mean, I'll happily go and watch Oasis every year for the rest of my life. So that one is safe. And I think, Martin mentioned Olivia Dean. She's a stadium act on the cusp. She did sold out 6 O2 arenas. So that's 120,000 tickets in London alone. So, we've got the talent coming through. And I think it's very much here to stay, thankfully.
Yeah, from the stadium. I mean, West Ham have a 99-year lease on the stadium, so we know it's going to be there for that long. And Athletics has 50 years, so yeah. In between those, we'll be putting on as many shows as we can.
Great, thanks everyone. So this has been Let Me Entertain You, behind the booming stadium shows. So thank you to Pete Holdich from Star Live, Kilimanjaro, Jack Walsh, and London Stadium, Martin Gritton. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.